Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about white balance. I know some people might say, oh, here we go again. Why don't you just leave it on auto? It doesn't write permanently to the image. What's the point? Why bother? But we here to become the best that we can at this sport. And knowing what white balance is and how to use it, it's going to help you become the best photographer you can be. So pay attention. This is white balance. What white balance is simply the color temperature of your image. Why is it called white balance in that case? Well, when white balance works, it tries to find the perfect white in a scene. It tries to make what is white as white as it can be. Because quite often, there is a certain color temperature cast over the image. If it's cold temperature, the image will seem blue. If it's a warm temperature, the image will seem warm. If it's a perfect white balance, which might not be what you want, but for the sake of learning what white balance is, perfect white balance will be neutral and it won't be too cold or too warm. It'll be right in between. So how white balance works is finding what should be white in a scene or as close to white in a scene and trying to remove any kind of color cast. Again, a lot of people will say that it's not worth knowing what white balance is because most of the time you can stick your camera on auto white balance, go into your post-processing and remove it through several functions. You can simply slide the temperature slider to be warmer or colder and you fixed it accordingly. Or you can use the eyedropper tool and click on a place that's as close to white as possible. In that area, your post-processing software will be able to notice any kind of color cast that's over a white area or 18% gray or as close to gray area as possible. Will be able to recognize that color cast if it's too much warmth or too much cold. And it'll be able to remove it simply by clicking. That is going to work 99% of the time. However, it is important to understand what all the white balance options are. If you look in any camera, it'll give you the choice of adjusting your white balance. Usually, the symbol is just a WB sign. And when you click on that, a whole bunch of options come up. Now, these are usually quite universal throughout all the cameras. Every camera has different symbols and different titles for different things that could all be the same thing. But with white balance, it's pretty universal. Let's have a look at some of them and what they mean. Firstly, there's auto. Most photographers will always remain on auto. Because your white balance is not written permanently to a raw file, means you can always change it in post-processing. No matter how wrong it is on your raw file, you can always save it in post-processing, which means this method is not wrong. You can do it, and professional photographers who are known throughout the world will often use auto white balance. It's not a bad approach. And yes, what that does, it takes a reading of the whole frame, looking at a lot of the white and pale areas or as close to gray or white areas, and tries to find color casts and remove them. And usually does a pretty good job of it. The problem comes, especially when there's unnatural light. We look at the next few options. The first one we're going to look at, since we've just spoken about auto white balance, is probably where it often doesn't work, and that's around tungsten light or white fluorescent light, artificial light. Tungsten bulb setting is good for when you're indoors and you've got orange globes, orange lights that cast an orange warm temperature into the room. It will remove that, cool down the image. And quite opposite to that is white fluorescent light, especially in modern days where we've got LED lights which are very white, very blue lights. They will cast a blue cast throughout your frame. So the white fluorescent option will remove that blue cast by warming up the image ever so slightly and fixing the white balance. Then there's the flash, which again, a flash can cast a white light, a blue light across your image, which can flatten quite a few colors. But this option will warm up the image slightly, make it a little bit richer. And then there's the very easy ones. The cloudy option will also warm up your image. You can picture being underneath clouds. A lot of those colors have retracted and the images become quite cold. So cloudy option will lift the temperature slightly. Daylight, you can imagine getting a lot of sunlight. There's a lot of warmth in the air and the image can be too warm. So the daylight option cools it down, downs your white balance, makes it a little bit bluer. Shade again is similar to cloudy. Having no sunlight hitting your subject means it might cool down it a little bit too much. So clicking on the shady white balance just adds a little bit of warmth, increases your color temperature slightly. The last one we're looking at is custom. Now this allows you to set a custom white balance to something you want specifically. Now as you've noticed, I've often been talking about the color temperature. That's because the white balance is measured in Kelvin, 3200 Kelvin, 4200 Kelvin, 5000 Kelvin. The higher the number, the warmer it gets. The lower the number, the cooler it gets. In a custom white balance, you're able to force the camera to shoot at a certain Kelvin, no matter how outrageous it might be. These days, Kelvins can get pretty high. They can go all the way to 8,000 and right down to 1,200, making it very blue and very cold, very warm and very orange colors. Now, you might be wondering, what's the point if auto will get it right 95% of the time, and the time that it doesn't get it right, you can just fix it in post-processing. Well, consider this. If you want to take your photography to the next level, in fact, even if you don't, and you just happen to be one of those people who are in the right place at the right time, and you're confronted with a scene that might not be photographed again in your lifetime, and you capture an image that you want to enter into the Photographer of the Year competition, and you could win, but your auto white balance was off, the judges are going to care. So when you have a vision, and that vision is that this image should be cold, it should be blue, then do it in camera. Everything you can in camera to make sure that raw file is as close to your vision as possible, because it could be the winning image that you wish your white balance was right. And the same thing with if you wanted a scene to be rich and warm and boiling over with orangey, red, rich colors, then do it in your white balance. Force your camera to give the correct white balance, because that's what your vision wants. And if it works out as well as you think it does, and it could win you a competition or just win you a personal sense of accomplishment, then make sure you get your white balance right. But if it's confusing in the beginning, you will be safe on auto, and you can always change it afterwards. That's white balance. I hope you enjoyed. We'll see you soon.